What's up guys, my name is Ace, and with all the hype surrounding Modern Warfare and a lot of the initial impressions videos coming out, I thought it would be a cool idea to look back to the previous year before Black Ops 4 released and see just how accurate my initial impressions and thoughts were now that we're pretty much a full year into the game. So I'm going to be going through a specific video that I made last year. This was after the reveal event in Black Ops 4, where I got several hours of gameplay time with some of the multiplayer maps. Of course, this was based on pretty limited experience. And also, some of the things I did talk about in that video, they did actually change before launch. So I'm just focusing on the main points that I feel still apply today. If you guys are interested in checking out that entire video and looking back on it, I will leave that linked in the description of this video. So let's start going through it, and let's start off with the section where I was talking about things that I liked about Black Ops 4 based on my initial impression. The first thing that I really like about this game is, despite all the changes, it still feels like a Call of Duty at its core. Now that we've had a year to play with the game, I still generally agree. When I was talking about this, I was specifically referring to the character movement, how the character feels and everything like that. And yeah, I stand behind that. It still has that Call of Duty arcadey sort of feel at its core, especially a Treyarch Call of Duty. It's not quite the same as an Infinity Ward Call of Duty, but at its core, yeah, felt like a Treyarch game. And I like that, and I still like that to this day. Next up, map design. Now, we only had access to 3 of the maps, but out of these 3 maps, I really liked all of them, and this is basically just traditional Treyarch map design. They tend to be a pretty standard linear 3-lane design with a great flank route, as well as very predictable choke points and fighting locations. There's a little bit of room to breathe if you need that, and I don't feel like I'm constantly having to worry about like 6 different areas at any given time. So this point I realize will be controversial, especially with Modern Warfare coming up and a lot of people really excited for Modern Warfare, but I stand behind this at least when it comes to Treyarch games. As much as I'm looking forward to a change of pace with Modern Warfare and I'm excited to see what their map design is going to be like, I really do enjoy a balanced, competitive 3-lane map design that does have a little bit of room to breathe. I don't like the super cramped ones. And overall, especially when we're looking at the launch maps for Black Ops 4, I really enjoy their map design. The DLC maps, not so much, and they actually kind of got completely away from this map design that I tend to enjoy. And of course, at the time with my initial impressions, I wasn't looking at DLC maps. So yeah, I do stand behind this. I understand there will be a lot of people that strongly disagree with me here, and that's totally fine. This really does come down to preference at the end of the day. Next up, we have a relatively controversial thing that I personally like, but I do understand it's not for everyone. This is the generally longer time to kill. I feel like it really rewards people that have good gunfighting skills. Not only do they position themselves well so that they can get that first shot on target, but they're able to hit multiple consecutive shots, they're able to control recoil, stay on target, and also evade shots in the middle of a gunfight. Alright, once again, just like with the map design, there are going to be some mixed feelings on this. Personally, I am still glad that they tried this slightly longer time to kill for this game, and I think it works well for this particular game. Having said that though, I don't want to see this slower time to kill return to Call of Duty. I think Call of Duty is better off with the traditional time to kill that they have. I think Modern Warfare, based on what we've seen so far, is in a much better place when it comes to time to kill. It allows them to better balance one-shot kill weapons, and also it's going to be much easier to deal with multiple enemies in Modern Warfare, whereas in Black Ops 4, it was quite difficult, especially if you were running into like 3 enemies at a time. You just didn't stand a chance. So again, I still don't hate the time to kill of Black Ops 4, and I really do generally like how the gunfights play out and how there actually is a bit of a gunfight when people are using the normal sort of guns and not the weird DLC weapons or the one-shot kill weapons. But again, I do feel Call of Duty is better off with more of a traditional time to kill. Next up, something that I'm extremely happy about in this game, we seem to have some pretty powerful streaks, and these streaks are reasonable to earn. Now looking back on this was of course before we knew anything about Zero. Zero wasn't in the game until after launch, and if Zero didn't exist, or if Zero couldn't actually steal high-end streaks, I would still agree with this. I do like the score streaks in Black Ops 4. I like that they are fairly easy to earn in most game modes, and also they do have some power to them. However, Zero completely throws a wrench in this, and it makes a bunch of those streaks that would otherwise be great, it makes them effectively useless, and therefore I really do feel limited in my streak selection now, which is quite frustrating to see because there was a lot of potential there, but they just ruined it with Zero. Next up, the new game mode, Control. I really like this new game mode, and I think this is going to be great for competitive play. I would say I still stand behind this completely. I think Control was a great addition to the game. It seemed to work really well for competitive as well. Keep in mind, I didn't really keep up with the competitive scene too much, but as far as I'm aware, it was generally liked by the competitive scene. And just recently, I've been going back and playing some more Control, and I'm still having a great time with it. So yeah, I like that addition for sure.
Moving on to the next thing that I like, this is the new predictive recoil system.
Once again, absolutely, totally still agree with this, 100% on board. The predictive recoil system was an excellent addition, and I hope it becomes a staple of the Call of Duty franchise.
Another thing that I like based on what I've seen so far is, at least with certain weapons with their damage profile, headshots actually matter even without the hollow point attachment.
Now with this one, unfortunately, within the first month of launch, this was pretty much completely removed from the game. Headshots are no longer relevant on most guns unless you're using high caliber. And I feel that's a little bit disappointing. I think headshots should matter on some guns. That should be a perk of using some of the guns that maybe kill slower or don't have very good recoil properties, for instance. It was nice when the game first launched that some guns had that ability. Of course, you have to keep it in check, and I feel like the ICR at launch, for instance, was too powerful with this ability to just get one headshot mixed in with body shots to help you. But I am a little bit disappointed that they seem to pretty much completely scrap this, and headshots are basically useless now unless you use high caliber. So those were my primary initial impressions that were really positive with Black Ops 4. Now let's get into the things I said that I didn't like so much about the game.
The first thing that I dislike about this game is currently you can only have one of each specialist character on each team. Now for competitive play, absolutely, I think this should be the case. Only one specialist character per team for competitive play sounds great to me. But for really casual public matches, I really feel like you should be able to use whichever specialist character you want.
Boy, was I wrong on this one. I completely underestimated the power of the specialists in Black Ops 4 at this point. I didn't think they would have nearly as big of an effect on the game as they did, and the game would not play well at all if anybody could use any specialist, so you could have an entire team of people using one particular specialist. That would be pretty much game breaking. Now, to be fair, at the time, I was also thinking about hero gear, for instance, like we had in Black Ops 3. I thought there would be challenges attached to individual specialists so you could unlock customization and uniforms and stuff, and that never actually came to the game. But gameplay-wise, I have no problem admitting that I was completely wrong about this one.
Next up, something that I'm really not liking at this point, and I feel is really unnecessary, is the new minimap mechanic, that Fog of War mechanic. I don't think it really adds anything to the gameplay experience, it just takes away from it.
1 year later, I stand by this 100%. The Fog of War was such a strange addition that I don't feel added anything at all to the game, and I feel it only took away from it. It was one of the big contributing factors that completely eliminated the Ghost perk as an option in this game, because even with the Ghost perk, if you show up in somebody's Fog of War, the entire enemy team can see you on the minimap. And this is just one of those things I really feel they added as a gimmick, a selling point that they could put up there and be like, hey, look, we've reworked the minimap. I thought it was horrible then, and I still feel it was a horrible addition to this day.
Another thing that really has me worried with this game are the sniper rifles. It takes you longer to kill that sniper with your regular gun, with your assault rifle or your SMG, and it takes them less time to aim down sight and kill you than we're used to seeing in the past. This to me looks like a very obvious recipe for disaster. I think quickscoping is going to end up being way too powerful in this game.
This is something I still generally agree with. I don't think it ended up being as bad as I was initially worried that it would end up being. However, I still don't think it worked out well in Black Ops 4. When you come up against a really competent quickscoper, or really anybody that's using a one-shot kill weapon with the standard time to kill of Black Ops 4, if you're using a regular gun, you often just don't stand a chance. You can be pumping your first several rounds into them, but it takes so many to kill now that they've got all the time in the world to get their shot off and insta-kill you. So this goes back to something I said earlier. I feel like the standard time to kill in Black Ops 4 is a little bit too slow to properly balance one-shot kill weapons.
Getting into the next thing that I'm not really a fan of in this game, this is the grenade cooldown, or the equipment cooldown I should call it. Now this does make sense if you're using the equipment that's tied to the specific specialist characters. For those ones, yes, those are quite powerful, and those should maintain a cooldown. But for a standard grenade or combat axe or something like that, I really feel like you should just respawn with it every time you die.
As much as people would claim that, oh, there'd be way too much nade spam if this were the case, I still stand behind this. I almost never see anybody using anything but the special issue equipment. Part of that is because you get that free on your class, whereas with the other equipment, you don't get that for free on your class. But I think another part of that is the fact that you have to wait for a cooldown on a combat axe instead of just having it at spawn, or a frag grenade, for instance. You don't get it at spawn, you have to wait till it charges up. I really find in this game, there's no reason to use anything but special issue equipment, and this is one of the reasons why.
Getting into the next item on my dislike list, this is the body armor.
Yep, I still stand behind this after 1 year. It didn't turn out to be nearly as bad as a lot of people were thinking it would be. I know a lot of people were thinking it's the end of the world to have body armor in the game, and that really wasn't the case with Black Ops 4. However, it's just one of those things where it creates inconsistencies, and I don't feel it has any place in Call of Duty.
Now, the final thing I'm going to put in the dislike category here has nothing to do with the actual gameplay. It has more to do with the menus and the way you navigate menus.
Now, I'm not going to show the rest of this clip because I was just talking about the fact that we have a cursor system in the menus, and I still stand behind this completely. Cursor menus make no sense on consoles. I absolutely hate them. They're great for PC, but keep them out of consoles. Give us our standard linear console menus. So at the end of that video, I also mentioned a couple things that I was really just unsure about at the time. I needed more playtime to really get a feel for it, so let's get into those.
First up, health regeneration. In this game, you have to manually heal yourself, which is something that we aren't used to in Call of Duty. Initially, I absolutely hated the idea of this. Now, after I got some more playtime with it, I really started warming up to it.
You know what? This is one of those things where I feel like it works really well in Black Ops 4 with its slightly slower time to kill and the way that they had gear and everything laid out. I do think manual health regeneration was a good thing in this game, and I like it for this game. Having said that, once again, it's one of those things where I just don't want to see it return in Call of Duty. Especially if the time to kill is going back to a traditional time to kill, as it looks like it's going to be with Modern Warfare at least. I don't think manual healing makes nearly as much sense with a faster time to kill game.
Another thing I'm a bit mixed on is the fact that it's 5v5 now instead of 6v6 for our standard modes.
Once again, this is one of those things where I feel like the game was designed around 5v5 for most objective game modes. I like the fact that they later turned Team Deathmatch into 6v6, because at this point Team Deathmatch was also 5v5, and therefore I'd say they handled it well this year, but once again, I don't want to see this return. I think 6v6 is best as that standard sort of mode, and then have the option to have those ground war modes with extra players. But of course, that, along with a bunch of other things in this video, is just my opinion. The one thing I really noticed while looking back here is I didn't say anything about the power of the specialist, and that's something that I feel I completely overlooked at this time after my limited playtime. I'm a little disappointed that I didn't recognize that specialists would be a major issue with this game. And as it is right now, if we're just talking strictly gameplay, that is currently my biggest issue with Black Ops 4, is the specialists. Yes, I also despise a lot of the business decisions they've made, like locking weapons in reserves and not having them directly earnable for everyone. But if we're just talking strictly gameplay balance, specialists turned out to be a big problem, and I didn't pick up on that with my initial experience with it. But with that, I'd like to know in the comment section below, do you think your impression of the game changed significantly from the launch period or pre-launch period up until now? And if so, which areas were you wrong about initially? Just let me know those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.
Yeah.